These ones that I put a while ago, and I was so proud of it, they are falling down here as well, and this one is about to. But I bought a cordless Brad nailer, and it has been delivered. And I'm gonna nail all these suckers, and they will not fall down. But let's get started with today's video. Today we're talking about mixing. All right, so the concept that we're gonna be talking about today may sound a little bit weird to you at the beginning. If it does sound weird, watch yesterday's video where I explain the whys of mixing with the stems. But long story short, when we are done composing, the music could be done already, and the music should sound good at this point. At this point, I hope that we are in the same page when it comes to that thing about mixing doesn't fix any composing mistake. Can you? Yeah. Just roll the clip from yesterday's video. Mixing is not going to fix any composing mistakes. People say, well, you know, the mixing, the mastering. Here's how it goes. Mastering is not gonna fix any mixing mistakes. Mixing is not gonna fix any composing mistakes. What makes your music sound good is the composition side of things. A good composition, a good arrangement, a good orchestration, a good balance when you are composing. So with that in mind, and still knowing that no matter how good your music sounds when you are done composing, we can always enhance and elevate that music with good mixing. Now is the time when we are gonna export all these tracks that we've got here. That's basically MIDI. We're gonna export them to audio, and then we're gonna import them into a new project. It's a blank project, which is gonna be super cool because now we don't have all this mess of MIDI data and plugins loaded and all these libraries loaded and routing. It's a clean blank template, which is really cool because that means that mentally we don't need to worry about everything that's going on here when we are composing. Now we're just mixing, and it's a clean project with just a few audio tracks. Now we just have to mix. And in terms of your computer, the CPU is like, yay!
My CPU is intact.
I don't have to work hard now. And you can load the type of plugins that you would like to load for mixing that maybe you couldn't load them when you were composing because the composing project was already too CPU intensive. That hole there, that is the AC vent that still hasn't been installed. This space used to be sort of like a storage area, didn't have AC, so you can imagine how hot it was in here in August. But back to our topic at hand, when it comes to, and I explained this yesterday, so I'll keep it short. When it comes to exporting those tracks, all that MIDI, from MIDI to audio, and those audio tracks to import them into the new project for mixing, we've got two options. Option number one is exporting every single track. Even if you have a track that just for 1 second have a triangle hit, we would export every single track. Maybe we're talking about 12 tracks, maybe we're talking about 100 tracks. If a mixing engineer is mixing your music, yes, this is the way to go. They will be happy. The only thing that they are going to ask is that you send them the tracks without reverb, dry, without any reverb added. If instead of a mixing engineer mixing the music, it's Mark Giovanni, the same person who's composed the music, then that is too much work. I'm not talking about the exporting part of things. That is not too much work. That's a click of a button. It is the mixing process. Yes, if I have all the tracks, I have a lot of flexibility when it comes to mixing. But also, if I have to mix 100 tracks, it's too much work for me. I generally don't have that much time. The second option is exporting stems, meaning not all tracks. And a stem is a group that includes a series of tracks that are similar in nature. So for example, strings could be an stem, or short strings could be an stem, or high-pitched short strings could be an stem. So it can be as broad or as specific as you want. The more specific it is, the more flexibility you'll have when you are mixing later on. But the more specific it is, also the more stems you're gonna have. And so At some point it won't make sense you exporting stems because you'll almost be exporting like every single track. So it's about finding the right balance. So if you're exporting stems, a mixing engineer is gonna tell you, get out of here. Mark Giovanni, if I'm mixing my music, exporting stems, hell yeah, because it's less work for me. All right, let's do it then. I'm gonna jump in my computer and you're gonna see exactly how I do this. So first of all, we've got the track right here. These are my stems. I've got two groups of stems. A smaller group of stems, these guys here, orchestra, percussion, synths, lead, bass, other. And then I have a bigger group of stems. So the way this goes is all these tracks are routed to these stems here. Each one of the tracks goes into a specific stem. For example, let's play a game for a second. Let's say that we have 6 stems. Strings short, strings long, woodwinds short, woodwinds long, brass short, brass long. Short, long stands for short notes, long notes. For example, an staccato, it's a short note. A legato, it's a long note. So we've got a timer, we've got 6 stems, and we've got a list of tracks. For example, this track here, violin pizzicato, which one of these stems that track would be routed to?
Hint, there is a right answer.
Yes, strings short, because it's a short note. This other track, cello long, where would that go?
Think you've got the right answer.
Exactly, strings long, because the cello is an instrument that belongs to the strings family, and the long, it's a long note. That other track, 12 horns legato, where would that go?
Let's hear the right answer.
Brass long, because horns is an instrument that belongs to the brass family, and the legato is long notes. So these are my stems. I've got 2 stems for the strings short, high and low. So for strings short, high, I'll have the staccatos, violins 1, 2, viola, and for the low, I'll have the cello double basses. I've got the same thing for long notes, strings long, high notes, strings long, low notes. Then I've got another one for string brands, another one for double basses. For brass, I don't have as much separation. I've got brass short and brass long, but I like to keep separated horns and trumpets. I have Brahms, which is sort of like a trailer type of sound that sometimes sounds like brass here. And then I've got woodwinds short, woodwinds long. I like to have the piano separated, choir, and then I've got the percussion down here. I've got a few auxiliary stems that I use in case that I've got a specific instrument that I don't know where to place. Maybe it's an ethnic instrument that doesn't have a specific place. I have it here. Then I've got another one for the harp, and I've got percussion high, mid, low. I like to have the cymbal roll separated, and I've got another one that's the sub bomb that's separated from percussion low. I also like to have the timpani separated, and I've got an auxiliary stem for percussion in case that there's an instrument that I don't know where to place. And then I've got a few ones for trailer type of sounds, punches, hits, downers. Then I've got effects high, effects low, stingers, razors, and shatters. And then I've got a specific one for drums, electric bass, synths, short notes, synths, long notes. Then I've got loops, high and low. And then I've got 3 for the typical synth pulses or guitar pulses high pitched, mid, and low. Up here I've got a few ones for ensemble type of sounds, because sometimes we don't have, let's say, violins 1, sometimes we're using a strings ensemble patch. Where would that go? Or sometimes I'm using a patch that sort of like orchestral long notes. Where do I route them to? I've got them up here: ensemble short notes, ensemble long notes, and ensemble percussion. Worth mentioning again that all these stems are routed again to a smaller group of stems: orchestra, perk, synths, lead, bass, and others. Because sometimes I don't have to do a proper mix. I just have literally 5-10 minutes and I have to just export orchestra percussion, compress the percussion a little bit, open the orchestra, add a little bit of reverb, boom. So that's when these come in very handy. Another time when these come very handy is when you literally don't even have time to mix. Let's say that TV movie where there's not a big budget, there's 60 minutes of music, 20 or 30 days to write all the music, and you have to deliver stems for the dub mix. Now, these stems that I just mentioned are a different type of stems. And now this is getting a little bit complicated, but these stems that I just mentioned are the stems that you deliver as composer to the music editor or to the dub mixing engineer, the person who's gonna mix your music with the dialogue and sound effects. Not to your mixing engineer who's gonna mix your music to make it sound good. No. These stems are the ones that you submit for the dub session, the mixing session where everything gets mixed together. Dialogue, sound effects, and music. So it's good to submit stems to them. So when they are mixing, if let's say there's dialogue and sound effects and there's something in your music that's conflicting with dialogue, they can bring down that specific stem. Maybe your music has some melodic strings and a shaker. I don't know, maybe. And the shaker is conflicting with the dialogue. If they have the percussion stem, they can bring it down a little bit and don't have to bring down the entire music, just the percussive things, while the emotional, orchestral, melodic stuff is still there. All right, let's go back there. All right, so let's export this music. Step number 1, routing. Make sure that the routing of each track actually goes to the right stem. And that's something that, even though I'm using a template, well, I sometimes update the template. I just want to make sure that all the tracks are actually routed to the right stems, because sometimes when you load a new track, that track gets routed to the master bus, not to the specific stem, not to the specific bus. And if that is so, then when you start mixing, you're like, where's the celesta? Why it's not here? Well, because it wasn't routed correctly. Or sometimes you've got the celesta in the low, short strings, and you're like, what's the celesta doing here? So what I do is I just open my template, the entire template, where I can see the return, and I'll make this small, and I'll go over each one of the tracks, and I'll make sure that in every track that has data, this is the MIDI track, I'm just gonna make sure that the aux return is routed to the correct stem. So violins in octave staccato, strings short high. Yes, makes sense. This one, strings low staccato, the aux return, strings short low. That is the correct bus, the correct stem. Fantastic. And on and on and on. I'm not gonna do this here now one by one because you'll get bored. So time lapse. Step number 2, turn off reverbs. That is why I generally do not use the reverb that comes built in the instrument, in the patch, in the library. Sometimes you're gonna load that instrument in Kontakt, and in that patch, there's a button that says reverb, and you can activate the reverb and decide how much reverb you want. I don't use that. Instead, all these are my stems here, and all these blue things that you see here, they're just plugins that do a quick pre-mix for me. In case that I don't have time to mix, I've got these plugins here that do sort of like an automated mix for me. They're gonna do the typical things that you would do for the strings, for brass, etc., but nothing fancy. I don't need these now, I have to deactivate them now. Yes, they make my music sound a little bit better, and they are useful if I don't have time to mix, but now I'm gonna actually spend the time mixing, so I have to get rid of all these things, but because I'll do a much better job myself when I'm mixing later on. So select all the stems, Q-Link or Option Shift, click here in Inserts, and we're bypassing all these plugins. And then export, audio mix down, and we will select all the stems except these ones because we don't need them. Yes, there may be some stems that we're gonna export and they get exported blank because in this composition we didn't use anything that ended in that stem, but that's okay. when I import all the tracks into the new template, if I see a track that's blank, I'll just select and delete. Export audio, make sure to deactivate real-time export. Name of a track, that's 21 Overture. Select this folder and then just export audio. It's gonna take literally a few seconds. So now all the tracks have been exported and labeled properly, as you can see here. But what I'm gonna do before I show you how I import these tracks into the other blank new project is I'm gonna play back this track here to show you how it sounds, to reinforce the idea, the concept that the music should sound good before mixing, that it should be a good arrangement, it has to be correctly balanced and everything. So I'll play this back and I'll see you in 2 minutes. So that is it. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and drag those audio files into a new project. So I'm gonna close this one and I'll see you in the new project. I'm re-exporting the tracks again because I didn't select the entire length of the song and I wanted to show you something. This is not real time. You can see how this is going faster than a second. And while this is happening, if you look here at BE Pro, which is the server computer, you can see some of the tracks, how they are triggering data. And this is this other computer here that's next to the studio. All right, so export is done. So I'm gonna file, save, and then I'm gonna close this project. And now you can mix this on Pro Tools or whatever mixing software that you use. In my case, I mix with Cubase most of the times, unless I have to start a mix and then deliver that mix to someone else to continue, then I would use Pro Tools. But just so you see the process, I'm gonna open new project, create empty. We've got the empty project here. I'm gonna select all the tracks and import them here. There you go. Here are all the tracks. That's it. Now we've got a very clean project to start mixing. But that's gonna be over the next few videos during this week. Remember that the most important part is the composing part. Have to make it sound good first. I've got a free class, link in description, teaching how to compose different styles of music, trailer, love, sadness. Check it out, you'll like it. Other than that, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. We are posting a video like this every single day. See you tomorrow.